In studio with us right now, it's the superintendent of Lubbock ISD, Dr. Berhl Robertson. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Chad. Glad to be on, man.
Yeah,
it's good to visit with you.
It's been a while. Glad to have you in studio. How's everything going over at LISD these days?
It's going great. Yeah, I was telling you, when I got here, golly, it's 2017. I mean, it's time flies, but we have a great team. Kids are doing great. We're having a lot of successes, and so it's been a great year.
Great.
We look forward to this next semester and moving into next school year.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because there was some controversy last week when, and I guess it dates back to the weekend. A new grading system for schools, not only school districts but for the individual schools, has been released. I think this year is their preliminary year, sort of an example type year, and then everything really kicks in starting next year. But it's the A through F grading scale. Tell our listeners a little bit of background on this and how it came up and how Lubbock ISD overall did, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, but the background of this, Chad, is we've had multiple accountability systems over the course of at least my career in the last 30 years. And they're all different. They all mean something different. The one we're currently under today is really you get 2 ratings, is met standard or improvement required. But what I like about the current system is that it does allow campuses to get distinctions. If they're performing in the top 25% of multiple categories, whether it's progress, math, English, social studies, science, post-secondary readiness, they can get acknowledgments for those. And we have a lot of campuses that do that. And so it's what we've been under the last, I guess, about 9 years or so. Now, the legislature this past session changed that accountability system to an A through F system, which other states have gone to, some successful, most not so successful in that system. And I think the thought behind that from the legislatures and a lot of people they heard from was that it would be easier to understand because our kids get grades and then we know what an A means and we know what an F means and we know what a C means. And the thought is it simplifies the system. I'm not so sure once we get into the methodology of what all transpired it's going to be simplified, but that did pass in the statute and the law that was passed. It was statutorily required by the Commissioner of Education to release what's called a preview A through F system for only 4 domains. When we have 5 domains in the accountability system, and so the preview, it was intended to go to just the legislators so they could sort of get a sense of what the field was. Commissioner, decided to make that public, which is fine. But it's not indicative of what it's going to look like in August of 2018, simply because you had one domain that wasn't included, and there's a lot of other data points that will be included that weren't this time. And so, it was just a preview is all it was. It was, and the commissioner himself said it was not intended to be an indicator of future success. And so, and that's the way we took it. And so that's what we have today. And eventually it will be 5 domains.
Right. What was Lubbock ISD and the other school districts around the state? What were they scored on this time? What were those domains?
So there's 4 domains this time, and remember we're still under our current accountability system. This is just sort of a what if and a numbers run based on methodology that the commissioner put together, which I think in some there's some good in that. Domain 1 is simply a student performance, and so it really just takes the percent passing all tests and all subgroups, combines all that group and divides it by the denominator, and you get a factor. And then he set the standard of what A was and what all the way down to F. Domain 2 is student progress. And so it's how did students do, how many met expectations, how many exceeded expectations. And so that was about growth, okay? And that's STAR test over STAR test, and that's all this is about. Domain 3 is about closing achievement gaps. And this particular methodology really just simply looked at a predictor factor of how your low socioeconomic students, which those are students who are on free and reduced lunch, would perform. And so it was a regression analysis factor. And I spent hours just running some numbers, and it took me probably 3 hours to run 2 campuses. And so that that's a predictor of our low income kids. Okay, and so those 3 domains are all related to the STAR test, 100%. Domain 4 is about post-secondary readiness. And the challenge with that is the indicators they have in for high school, those are really good indicators. You've got the number of kids on coherent sequence of courses, the types of graduation plans they have, the graduation rate, and multiple other factors. Now, not all those were included this time because the data wasn't there. And so it wasn't, it was what it was, basically. Domain 4, but for middle schools, it only really looked at chronic absenteeism and then 7th and 8th grade dropout rate, which you really shouldn't have any of those.
Right.
And so for elementaries, it was strictly about chronic absenteeism. Now, here's the sort of the caveat, if I might. For high schools, Domain 4 makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of things that a lot of data points, ACT, SAT, AP, IB, all the things that we can calculate. But that's 35% eventually of the accountability of the whole grade. Okay, well, if just absenteeism is 35%, I'm not so sure that makes sense. And so we've got some work to do, or the legislature has some work to do. And so ultimately, in August of 2018, when ratings come out, domains 1, 2, and 3, which are all star related, performance, progress, and closing achievement gaps, will be 55% of the overall score. Domain 4 then will be 35%, and Domain 5, which is school and community engagement as defined by each campus community, will be 10%. Each domain will have a letter grade, and then eventually there'll be an overall grade for the district and campus. In this preview, it was just really sort of a cursory look at the 4 domains, no overall grade, and sort of a what-if scenario.
This made a lot of news around the state because a lot of school districts sent out press releases,
Sure.
went to the media. There were a lot of complaints. LISD, pretty silent overall compared to some of your neighboring school districts around. What was there a reason behind that, or what was it that people were so upset about?
Well, I just don't think that the educators, and I'm included, like the system, particularly a preview of a system that's undeveloped. And so we didn't think it was a really fair look at a system that's going to eventually be based on next year's data that would include more indicators. It was really intended, I think, from the state legislature, just to give the legislators a look at, okay, what does this look like? What do we need to clean up? Mm-hmm. And so, but I did some internal communications with our faculty and talked to them about it. I also think that I personally don't want to get out there and not be ugly about it, but just hammer this home because if we still have this system in place after our legislators meet, I think 2 things we need to do. I don't think it's a good system. Okay, I'm going to put that out front because I don't think that the ability to explain the specific A through F and all the indicators and what they actually mean is and we want to be as transparent as possible, but it's not going to be as simple as people think it is. But secondly, I also want us to work, if this is what we're going to have, to make it the best it can be and so that it does make sense. And so I think there's 2 pieces to that. We've talked somewhat publicly a little bit about the fact that we don't really like the system, especially the preview. But no, I'm not one. I think there's a balance, honestly, right, in how you go about your business, and I have a lot of respect for everybody who's written about it. And we may at some point in time put out an op-ed or something trying to explain it and give our opinion on it. And so there's some things to come on, I think, the Lubbock side. But we're just not talking about it a lot at this point because it's not law at this point this year.
Right. When the grades that were released and people, there are some of the news sites that have all the grades listed for Lubbock ISD. It kind of, there were grades all over. In your opinion, when you go through and maybe in the next, when all the domains are released and when this really goes into effect, when you're talking to parents and maybe a parent calls you and they're concerned about the school, they're concerned about school district, and this can go for any superintendent. Is there an area or a domain that you would maybe point to as going, okay, this is a true indicator of where this school is going or where this district is going?
Well, I don't know that I have a great
Are there more important indicators than others?
Yeah, I mean, I think for elementary school, it's going to be based really for the most part on the STAR test because it's chronic absenteeism and then a small portion of how the school community really feels. Okay, and so once that comes out, my response to parents, if I get a call about a particular school, I'll explain to them the methodology. I'll explain to them what we do. And we do have schools that perform at not a very great level. But if you also look across our district, it's the highest priority schools perform the worst, the least poverty schools perform the best, and that's statewide. And so the biggest indicator of scores is poverty. And so what I'm going to look to is domain 2, and that's the growth measure. And so we can say we know where our kids are, and as long as we're growing them at a rapid level, we're going to get there. But we have great people doing great things, and we have great systems in place. And you know as well as I do, you don't change things and increase at this level immediately. And so as long as we're on a path that's upright and a pretty steep bar, I think that's what we're after, and eventually we'll get to where we want to be.
Can you hang around one more segment?
You bet.
All right. When we come back, we'll continue with Dr. Berhl Robertson, Lubbock ISD Superintendent. We'll be right back. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. All right, welcome back. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO. Dr. Berhl Robertson back in studio with us, Lubbock ISD Superintendent. I want to talk in this segment just a little bit about what all's going on with Lubbock ISD, and also maybe tie it in with the legislature and also the future of LISD. One of those, futures with LISD, some changes at Lubbock High.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, this we have spent an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out schedules for high schools. And, we went to an 8-period day 6 years ago. You don't want to just change a schedule and then change it again next year. And so we really spent a lot of time studying high school schedules. We did a survey, sent out a survey before the holidays, really about high school start times and what the propensity was to maybe move to an earlier start time so kids could get out earlier. That does have impact on elementary schools. And so we got the survey data back. We met as an administrative team and with principals. We met with our board to try to figure out what the best. And so what we landed on outside of Lubbock High, and we'll be communicating that out today, is a variation of schedules, but where all high schools will be on the same schedule, all middle schools will be on the same schedule, and all elementaries will be on the same schedule. And they will all go the exact number of minutes. And so today we're under a minutes time frame with student instructional time versus prior to 2610, we were on a day. And so the way that the agency accounts for minutes today is different than it was because they never had to account for minutes. And so every campus will go for 160 minutes next year under the new calendar. That gets us to about 800 minutes over the requirement. And that gives us flexibility then to, if we have an early out or late start for weather, then we've got the minutes built in for that. So there's a lot of great things in House Bill 2610, which is authored by Ken King out of Canadian. But one is sometimes there's unintended consequences. And so the Lubbock High schedule was a little problem because we had to apply for a waiver last year. We've never had to do that before. We had to apply for a waiver because they didn't meet the 7-hour rule. There's another statute that requires the instructional day to be 7 hours. And the way attendance was calculated before, it didn't make a lot of difference for Lubbock High. Well, this year we applied for a waiver because that's what we were told to do based on the new law, and it was denied. And so I personally talked to the Commissioner of Education to get that waiver for this current school year, and he said, resubmit it and I'll grant it. And he did. He said, but we're not going to grant those anymore. And I did that mainly because the funding folks at TEA said their only option based on the law was if you don't meet the 7-hour requirement, and now we're counting by minutes every single campus, then you do not get funded for that day. And that equates to well over $1 million reduction in funding had we kept the current schedule. And so that was really the driver behind the Lubbock High change. And we met with teachers on Monday. We met with a group of parents. Everybody was invited on Monday afternoon, explained the process. I think generally there was a lot of positive comments, and certainly there was a lot of concern because the Lubbock High schedule has been there since 1979, so it makes it special, that sort of thing. And so, our contention moving forward is there's two pieces of this I think that will be positive. What makes Lubbock High special is the programming and the people. And on the schedule, the early outs is a nice sort of bonus, but really our programming, what we offer, a high academic standard, and the teachers, really, parents and kids, make it really, really special. Second, House Bill 5 that passed, 4 years ago, talked about career paths and endorsement areas and changed sort of graduation requirements. Well, the students at Lubbock High could not take advantage of any of those classes in the afternoon because of Friday schedule. They couldn't meet the required number of minutes you have to have in career and technology education courses. And so now our kids at Lubbock High will have equal opportunity across the board with our Byron Martin Advanced Technology Center. And it is Advanced Technology Center. It's some high-level courses that kids will be able to take now. And so anyway, it's those decisions are hard, but they're certainly well thought out. But we feel good about our overall schedule next year. Everybody will be on the same start and end times. I mean, middle school and elementary and high school have different, but each middle school will be on the same, each high school on the same, and each elementary on the same. And it doesn't have a great shift. But one thing we're able to do is get high school kids out earlier, because part of the issue, as we talked about, was getting out late. Kids were home late because they had practices and they had events and then homework, and so we get them out, at least all the other campuses, about 15 minutes earlier. Lubbock High is certainly more significant than that on Monday through Thursday.
What is I guess the next school year, or 2017 in general, what does it hold for Lubbock ISD, and what can people in the community expect out of Lubbock ISD heading into this year?
Well, I think they can expect us to continue to take care of their kids in a great way. They can expect that academically we're going to continue to move forward. We spent the last couple of years really doing an intense plan. One of the beauties about this school year and with this House Bill 2610, Chad, is that we have some flexibility within the calendar. And so that our teachers are now able to go to professional development that's designed by the district in order to really get better at teaching the way we have to teach today. And so that's built in. This is the first year we've been able to do that. Been some bumps in the road when you're training 2,000 teachers and 170 presenters within the district, but we've got those tweaked along the way and really helping prepare our teachers to a different level based on the standards we have, because we have to teach differently. And so I think you can expect kids to get better and better. I think from a co-curricular and extracurricular standpoint, with our robotics programs, with all the work at the Byron Martin ATC, with our academics, I think you can expect really to we call it work to work, and we have to continue to work to work. And we have great programs in all of our high schools, and we have IB throughout elementary through high school. We're fixing to do a big remodel at the ATC, most likely to put a full culinary kitchen, because we have those at high schools to offer the full level of culinary. And so a lot of great things happening in Lubbock ISD.
All right, Dr. Berhl Robertson, we're going to have you in studio more often in 2017, and look forward to visiting with you.
Sounds good, Chad. I appreciate you guys.